Welcome to the General's Gentleman.
It doesn't take long to work out just how Homeworld-like Deserts of Kharak feels. Everything from the visuals, to the voice acting, the story, the economy, and of course, the raw gameplay itself. It's quite impressive how authentic it actually feels, despite being a completely different setting in a two-dimensional plane and from a new development studio, though it does have a few members from the original team. The multiplayer mostly revolves around countering your opponent's army composition and managing your production. All the units make up a soft counter system, which creates a great dynamic since everything needs to be used differently in order to fill their intended role. For example, railguns counter the armoured assault vehicles, but they need to remain at long range and should use high ground for additional effectiveness. On the other hand, light attack vehicles counter railguns, but they need to charge up close because of their short range, so they're easily warded off by the armoured assault vehicles. It's often necessary to use the mobility to outflank and catch the railguns out of position. Hidden beneath the large scale and wide zoom lies an abundance of micros such as focus firing, unit preservation, kiting, blocking line of sight, and shunting power systems to modify the carrier's combat capabilities. Additionally, units can be upgraded with abilities to provide more utility, such as a quick speed boost or smoke shells that can block line of sight and negate the range advantage of railguns. Deserts of Kharak flows excellently due to the artifact retrieval mode, in which players must capture artifacts and escort them to their extraction point. The artifact retrieval mode is integral to the success of the multiplayer, as a carrier can deter economic harassment. Once the players start to expand their salvaging out away from the carrier, harassing salvages and support cruisers becomes very effective, but mainly because combat units are generally out contesting the artifacts. The positioning and decision making becomes tense, between attacking and defending the 3 artifact spawns and harassing and defending the salvages. Deserts of Kharak is an exciting multiplayer experience. It feels fast paced and frantic, but not in a taxing APM sense. There's also a large emphasis on scouting, both in terms of positioning as well as monitoring the opponent's army composition and tech. Deserts of Kharak is the best multiplayer RTS we've had in quite a while, but tragically, its potential for a thriving multiplayer community is being squandered by a few core issues and a lack of vital features. First and foremost, the game is region locked. It's 2016 and we still get an RTS game that's region locked. It's absurd. This is particularly an issue for me since I'm in Australia, which is probably the smallest region. I went to play some games on launch day and was met with a blank server list, followed up by searching on Automatch for 22 minutes with no luck. Fortunately, Steam invites do seem to work fine, so I was actually able to play custom games with people from my Steam. I'm pretty embedded within RTS communities, so this was an easy workaround for myself, but what if I didn't know anyone and I was left to fend for myself? Well, it turns out you can actually change your download location in Steam settings, which will then move you to a better region and makes it easier to find games. But of course, I didn't actually know this until somebody told me. So why the bloody hell is Deserts of Kharak actually region locked, especially when you can play with no problems with people all around the world? Well, it's probably because of the game's horrendous networking issues. When Deserts of Kharak lags, it lags hardcore. I don't understand why exactly, but if you get a small amount of lag, it seems to mess up the entire game. The game will slow down and stop at an obnoxious rate, and chances are players will drop. I didn't seem to have any issues playing 1 vs 1, but as soon as I tried some 2v2s, half of my games ended up with severe lag and everyone dropping. Most likely there is someone to blame the laggy connection, but lag in an RTS game isn't normally the end of the world. Sure, you'll get a bit of delay here and there and maybe a few waits, but lag in Deserts of Kharak seems to break everything and makes it really unplayable. Now, I'm certainly not the only one to experience this. Other users have reported the same issue. So this is just speculation, but the region locking is probably a half-assed solution to the networking problems of which Deserts of Kharak suffers. Now, team games really aren't my cup of tea, so if that was it, I could manage, but it doesn't just stop there, it gets worse. Deserts of Kharak has no replay support and no observer mode. You know how in every RTS game how you can watch replays and it's great? Yeah, you can't do that in Deserts of Kharak. The lack of replays is so frustrating for me personally because I'm a shoutcaster and I'm always super keen to expand our content onto cool new RTS games. I was excited to do content and to produce shoutcasts for this game because I think it's awesome, but I can't. It's physically impossible for me to produce shoutcasts because there's no replay support. Replays are so important for an RTS game's multiplayer community because content draws people in and gets them excited to play. Let's Plays and shoutcasters are free marketing for a game and they should be embraced. It's also necessary to keep a healthy multiplayer community, which is what causes players to introduce their friends to the game. Replays and subsequent content are a tool to teach new players how the game works and showcasing the top level play for everyone to witness and to learn from. It will increase the overall skill in the game, which results in a lower skill gap between players, causing a better experience for everyone involved. Posting one's replays can be used for asking for advice on forums, to expose balance problems, or to report bugs. It's also necessary for the community to run tournaments, because no one's going to bother running a tournament if no one can watch it. Leaving out replays was obviously just because they ran out of budget and time, but it's detrimental to the overall longevity of the game. So is it really saving money in the long run? My last peeve is the complete lack of rebindable hotkeys. This isn't necessarily a problem if the default hotkeys are flawless, but the default hotkeys in Deserts of Kharak really leave a lot to be desired. For example, the camera is rotated by holding down a right click, the same button that issues unit commands. Since it's a button that you press all the time, I would often accidentally rotate the camera. I've gotten used to it now, but it really was quite frustrating and it would have been entirely avoidable if I could just change it to something like Alt. Grid hotkey layout is probably the most efficient, but players should always have the ability to customize the controls and hotkeys to suit their preferences and past experiences. If you have a player that's invested thousands of hours into playing StarCraft 2, then that player is going to want to have a hotkey layout that resembles what they have ingrained in their muscle memory. This review pains me to write, because I do generally enjoy Deserts of Kharak. It seems like the devs had a solid idea of what they wanted to deliver, and they realized that vision fantastically, with a well-developed set of mechanics and unit dynamics. Fans of the original Homeworld games in particular will appreciate its authentic revival of the franchise. I just hope they fix these issues and implement the missing features soon, before it's too late, and the multiplayer community dies off. Thank you so much for watching. My name is The Machine of the Generals, gentlemen. Be sure to subscribe to the channel for more RTS content, because we do shoutcasts here for Command & Conquer Generals, Company of Heroes 2, Rise of Nations, and I do a series called What Makes RTS Games Fun, where I analyze and really explore RTS design philosophy. Cheers.